Hi everyone, this is Chris Craig with Unanet, and this video is on the usage of resource scheduling, budgeting, and planning. We hear from our customers that in addition to looking at the data from the past, they need to look at the data in the future to make data-driven decisions around how most effectively to drive their business forward. And the metaphor is it's hard to drive your car by looking in the rearview mirror. So you have to look forward, you have to plan for what's coming up, and then make adjustments to the plan. And that's a synopsis for this video. We do have a predecessor video on background data setup around the key elements for resource scheduling, budgeting, and planning. And I encourage you to watch that video if you have yet to see it, because it does go through some of the key data elements that are involved in this video. So when someone authenticates into Unanet, again, it is a role-based system. So depending on the roles associated with the person's profile, that determines their level of access into the system, what they can and cannot see, what they can and cannot edit, which customers they have access to, which projects, which opportunities, which departments, which employees, etc. So these charts and these reports are based on what this person has chosen to see, combined with what they're allowed to see. And you can make the dashboards as simple or as sophisticated as you want. If you want nothing on your dashboard, you can put nothing on your dashboard. So when we say the word dashboard, each of these menu items across the top represents a different dashboard. This is our project dashboard with a set of charts and reports. This is our forecast dashboard with another set of charts and reports. So when we talk about planning and budgeting, we kind of focus on the questions that companies are looking to answer. So questions like who is overbooked, who is underbooked, when do people become available, when do people with specific skills become available, are projects adequately staffed, what is the revenue forecast, what is the cost forecast into the future, what is the weighted and dated pipeline. So something we'll show in a minute, but how do you look at your pipeline? There's different ways to view the pipeline. So let's get right into it. Unanet has, in the setup video, we talked about how you can create different statuses and then look at the opportunities based on the different pipeline status. So this is a pipeline report, and you can come up with your different nomenclature, your different lexicon for stage gating, but these are just examples of very basic pipeline where you have different stages, and then you can obviously have multiple opportunities in each stage. The nice thing about Unanet, again, is since everything is defined under the umbrella of a project, if you have a pipeline stage, you can come in here and effectively just flip the switch, and you can make this an open, active project, or you can advance it through the stage gating process. If you are not awarded the project, you can close it out and you can track your lessons learned. You can also do, waterfall analysis into the future of all of these compiled on top of each other. So we showed you a traditional pipeline view. We also have a periodic pipeline view in Unanet. So this is basically showing you by customer, by opportunity, the expected revenue amounts for the next 12 months. And we're doing this in November, but these columns can be days, weeks, months, quarters, years. But you'll notice that these rows have percentages next to them. So we're basically doing an expected value calculation based on the probability percentage here. And you'll notice we're expected to bring in $6.5 million over the next 12 months. If we go back to the criteria of the report and we run the report without using the probability percentage, when we run this, now it's 9 million, over 9 million that we're expected to bring in. So again, the probability percentage will factor and give a weighted forecast of each opportunity, so you can see kind of a cleaner view of what is expected to come in. This is one view. Another view that our customers typically look at breaks out the elements of cost and revenue. So if right now at the recording time of this video, it's November of 2019. So if we're looking at a budget for 2020, we can see all of our labor broken out. We can see all of our indirect costs broken out and summed up into different cost elements. And our other direct costs, our materials, travel, subcontractor, and then we can see our indirects. So fringe, this could be your 401k, your insurance, your vacation that's indirectly spread across your projects. The overhead could be your rent that, again, is indirectly calculated and spread across your projects and your opportunities. G&A could be your finance team or your admin team. But this basically breaks down those different elements for you and then compares that with your revenue. And a nice thing about Unanet is we have an internal report writer where you can define these rows to be whatever you want them to be. So this is kind of a traditional format of looking at labor, ODCs, and indirects. And if we run this using a different format that's been defined, and you can define whatever formats you want, this time we're looking at revenue in the first line, and then we're taking out labor and ODC so we can see our gross margin, and then we can take out indirects, and then we can see our net margin and compare gross and net margin. So again, you can define these rows to be whatever you want them to be, and you can run different calculations on them. Okay, so breaking this down further, if we get into what constitutes labor, what constitutes ODCs, and what constitutes indirects, and we do have other videos on how indirects are calculated and or allocated to different opportunities and different projects. So let's start with labor here. This is a view that shows how our people are planned across all projects or all opportunities. So quickly from here, you can see who's overbooked, who's underbooked, when do resources become available. For a lot of our customers, people are the primary driver of the revenue and the primary contributor of the costs. So being able to look at how their most valuable asset is planned into the future is a key driver for their business. And these are all clickable rows. So if we wanted to drill down, why is Caroline, user, looking as overbooked? It shows us what she's booked on that makes up that overbooking. And again, right now we're looking at it week over week. We could just as easily with the criteria, change the criteria and look at it month over month or quarter over quarter or year over year. We can set the colors to represent whatever thresholds we want. So now we're looking at it month over month. You'll notice on the criteria, you can filter what's displayed here in a variety of different ways. So if we go back to the criteria, you can filter based on the departments that you're looking at, or if you want to look for individual resources, you could do that. Shift or control is a multi-select in Unanet. You can filter based on labor category. So, business analyst, project manager, or senior engineer. You can filter based on location. You can filter based on skill set. So if you wanted to search for Java programmers, these are Java programmers that we can search for. Again, we can set the colors to represent different thresholds. So once you define your criteria, you can then either run it or you can save it. So if you save the criteria, you give it a name, you name it here, and then you pick which of your dashboards you want to save it towards. Again, the dashboards correspond to the menus going across the top, but then it will always be there for you. So if we go to our forecast dashboard, we have this report here called resource allocation, and we run that. You can also share the save criteria. So sharing is powerful for 4 reasons. One is that it gets everyone looking at the same set of data. So oftentimes we talk to companies that have, literally hundreds of Excel spreadsheets floating around. And this gets everyone looking at the same data in a consistent format. 2, the role-based access will apply in a save shared report. So if you're the administrator of your Unanet system for your company and you save this report across the company, when the leader of the digital services team runs it, they may only see this section of the report. When the leader of the consulting services, technical services group runs it, they may only see this section of the report. So the role-based access applies, even though it's all one report. It's only created once. The roles are applied to it when it's viewed. You can also embed the reports into email. So each report, when you run a report, each report will have a unique hyperlink associated with it. In this case, S_122. So we call this push reporting, where Unanet can send off email alerts every week or every month with a series of reports associated with them. And then number 4 is we have a Unanet to Excel tool that will take the data directly to Excel if you want to manipulate it further. You'll also notice in this view, in the criteria, you can associate the probability percentage. We talked about the probability percentage earlier. So right now, Eleanor is 180% booked over these next 12 weeks. If we go back to the criteria and we use the probability percentage in the calculation, when we run it using the probability percentage, Eleanor is 99% booked. So it's basically factoring what she's planned on. We can drill into Eleanor and we can see what she's planned on. It's factoring those engagements down based on the probability percentage. So in Unanet, we do have the concept of kind of matrix-based reporting, where you could either view the data by person by project or by project by person. So for example, this is a report showing you everything Darla is planned on, everything David is planned on, everything Dustin is planned on. Or you could flip the data around. You could invert the data like a pivot table concept. So instead of showing the data by person by project, you could effectively show the same data by project by person. This is everyone on 10.10.7011. This is everyone on 20.studyx. And then you can also, choose what you want to show up in the report. So if we don't want to look at dollars, but we want to look at FTEs, and we want to see by labor category, how many FTEs are there, we can run this, and it's basically showing us FTE calculations by project, by labor category. So you can pretty much query the data, by customer, by project, by department, by employee over any date range in a variety of different layouts. And then once you find the layouts you choose to run most frequently, you can save that to your system. All right, so how do you get all of the planned data into Unanet? Well, this is the People Planner screen, and this basically looks like one of the reports we've already seen, except it's actually an editable version. So you can come in here and edit these values. Now, right now, we're showing you FTEs, full-time equivalents. You could just as easily do the planning in hours, and you can convert easily. So if we go and say, let's see it in hours instead of FTEs, now we're showing by project, by person, hours instead of FTEs. You can also flip the data around again. So instead of showing by project by person, you could show by person by project. Everything Fran is on, everything Faye is on, everything Frank is on, etc. There are kind of some tips and tricks I can show you for moving this data around in a kind of simplistic manner. We have this shift right, shift left capability down here. So if you wanted to move things over to the right, you can move things over to the right. If you want to move them back to the left, you can move them back to the left. If you wanted to, populate, and again, the columns here can be days, weeks, months, quarters, semi-months actually. So if you wanted to populate with either hours or FTEs, you can do this. If you wanted to populate down a column, you could say, all right, for this period, everyone's going to be 0.5 FTE, and then it'll populate down. Or if you wanted to populate across, click on the person and it will populate across. Or if you wanted to populate the entire grid, click up here and you can populate the entire matrix. So those are just kind of some quick tips and tricks for navigating. As far as what's showing up on the grid, this is where it really gets powerful, in that you can query based on different departments, or if you wanted to plan different people, you could search for different people here. You can specify by labor category. You can specify by location to only show you people from a certain location, to only show you people with certain skill sets. You can also say what you want the background color to represent. So show me in the background color how they're booked across all engagements. This one is also very powerful because if you only want to find available people, then you can limit the resources to only show you people that are available 100% of the time. Or if you want to look at all your overbooked people, you could look for people that are booked more than a certain percentage. But this criteria allows you to filter it in different ways. And then again, once you identify the criteria you choose to run, you can save that criteria and add it to your dashboard. We also have the concept of a swapping example. In Unanet, we have TBD resources. Some organizations call this ghost resourcing, or some call it soft booking versus hard booking. But the basic concept is all the same. Is you have a placeholder, and you can plan out a placeholder just like you can plan out a human being. And then when you're ready to swap that placeholder for a human, you could double click on the placeholder, pick the human you want to swap it to. In this case, we're swapping the business analyst for Chris Director, and then we do the swap and it moves the plans automatically over. That way, when we're looking at a supply-demand curve, something like this, we can see our capacity, or our supply is our number of humans, and then our plans could be well above, in which case we need to hire. In this case, it's below, so we would need to figure out how to reallocate people or get work for people. But this is a key report customers look at. Now, we also have the concept of a resource request in Unanet. And basically, I'll walk through this fairly quickly, because you could use the TBD concept that we just looked at with the role-based restriction, so that some people could just plan TBDs and then there would be specific people responsible for assigning the human beings. You could use that. If you want a more formalized process with audit trails as far as who did what when, you could do a resource request. So if we do a resource request, we can pick a project. We can give it a title. We can give it a description. We can do the request in hours or FTEs. Say we'll do it in FTEs here. We can do it period over period or for a single date range. Let's say we'll do it for 3 months starting next month. And then this gets into what are we actually looking for. So let's say we're looking for a business analyst. So we're looking for a business analyst. If we wanted them to be from a specific location, we could pick by location. If we wanted to work, if we want to request a specific human being, if we've worked with Jill Smith before and we want to work with Jill Smith again, we can do that. If we want to request somebody with a specific skill set, we can do that. Let's just say we're looking for a business analyst. So this saves the request, and then how much of the business analyst are we looking for? Let's say 2, 1, and 0.5. And again, we're doing this in FTEs. This request then gets routed to a resource planner or a team of resource planners. And we can go in and do the request. They can get notified via email that the request is out there. And if we log in as the planner, we can go in and see what's been requested, and then we can choose to add people to the request. So this shows everything that we just created. They're looking for a business analyst for this amount over this time period, and we can decline the request, or we can choose to add resources. So we'll add resources. And what this does is it goes out and looks at all of our business analysts and shows us how they're currently booked. So if we want to add, we need 2 people at least. So let's add Carla user and Donna planner, and we'll here say how much of them we're going to add to the request. So 1 FTE, 1 FTE, 1. Our goal is to get this variance to request line to 0 down here. So we've fulfilled the request. We can then notify the requester it's been fulfilled, and they can choose to accept or deny the request. So again, that's a more kind of formalized process. The way most of our customers do it is through the TBD resources. But again, you have different options there. Okay. In addition to labor, you can also forecast expenses. And these expenses could be direct costs on your customer projects. They could be indirect costs on your internal projects. They could be costs on your indirect internal projects. So here's where you pick the expense type, you put in the dollar amount, and you forecast that into the future. And then again, when we looked at that budget report, we had all of our labor, all of our ODCs, and then all of our indirects. We do have another video on taking the project level budgets and converting them to general ledger budgets. So this is looking at the project level budgets now, but again, these can be converted to the GL budgets. And again, it's summarizing the labor, the ODCs, and the indirects. Now, one thing that's really nice here is you can see. Let's go to in Unanet. You have the ability to view actuals and plans on the same screen. So if we look at this report, and as I'm running this report, today is November 25th, 2019. So we're taking actuals through today and plans as of tomorrow. So again, the actuals are represented by an asterisk. The plans are represented by a plus. This is all actual historical data through October. November has both actuals and plans in it. And then December is all plans. So our budget, less our actuals, less our plans, is our unallocated budget, or what we have left to plan. So I'll say that again: budget, less actuals, less plans is unallocated budget. So typically this would be, if you're keeping up with your planning, this would be 0. So the way to get this to 0, and we'll just keep this up, we'll go forecast. We'll bring up our people planner, and we'll bring it up for the big data project, and we'll throw some resources on that project just to give you a sense of how this is working. If we click on save, we've added that plan. So then if we refresh, you should see these numbers go down, 64,000 and 15,000 hours. You should see both these go down because, again, budget less actuals, less plans is unallocated budget. So for 65,000 and 15,000, we refresh this report. Now we have 46 and 14. So it did go down as expected, and you would keep planning resources to get that number to 0. So that is all I have for this video. I guess the one other thing I wanted to point out is there are several charts within Unanet that are basically pictorial representations of the tabular data that we've already looked at. So if you wanted to look at the charts, the bars are measured on the left-hand side of the y-axis in a periodic format. The lines are cumulative numbers measured on the right-hand side. And then all of these are clickable or drillable. You can also see, when you're projected to hit certain funding thresholds. 75% of the funded value or the funded value, but you can click through and you can get to those tabular reports. All right, I want to thank everybody for your time. Again, we do have a variety of videos on all things Unanet at unanet.com/videos. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and hope this was beneficial. Thank you.